some things that do look promising. So the U.S. has reportedly announced billions of dollars in subsidies for advanced chips. So we talked about chips last episode. We talked about SMH. We talked about AMD. We talked about Qualcomm. We talked about Nvidia, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But the Biden administration is prepared to allocate billions of dollars in subsidies to major semiconductor companies to develop new manufacturing facilities in the United States. This move is part of a broader strategy to boost domestic production of advanced semiconductors. So what are your thoughts on this? You know, even when we had Amin Ra on, and he was saying that the workforce in America is really not even trained at a high level to produce a lot of these chips. But then there's AI that comes into place as well, but that would kind of defeat the purpose of trying to hire jobs in America. So we're right. Billions of dollars. Is this something that's going to be beneficial for the chip industry? If so, which companies will it benefit? American companies like Intel. Who's going to benefit from this billions of dollars into chips situation?
Intel fell 12% on Friday, so it won't be them. Finito, Espiritu Santo. AMD, Nvidia are going to be the two primary beneficiaries. Is it a good move by the government? With it being an election year, you do have to put some capital into some sectors that can help the economy grow. While even though GDP over the last quarter rose, you want to have a sustained growth in terms of GDP. AMD and Nvidia are the two players that are going to do incredibly well. And also the big threat on the table is we cannot have Taiwan Semiconductor be the number one chip maker and the best chip maker manufacturer while all of our tech companies are based in Silicon Valley and be dependent upon them. So not only is it a way to help advance GDP in the future, but it's also a hedge, because if we are going to hitch our economy to AI and chips over the next 10 to 20 years, we can't have the number one player be in Taiwan. So I think it is great. We've talked about AMD endlessly, one of my favorites. Nvidia is one of my favorites. They'll do incredibly well. Google will get some spillover. Meta will get some spillover as a result. That's part of the reason why you saw Zuckerberg announce how many GPUs that they bought as well, which does make them a bigger player as a result. But buy the top two of all time, Nvidia and AMD, you'll be A-okay. Nvidia does need to come down in price somewhat, but for long term, hold those two. I know the Intel hate is endless. It's not hate, but okay. Is Intel better than ASML?
No.
Are they better than Taiwan Semiconductor?
These are rhetorical questions.
Is it better than AMD, Nvidia?
Yeah.
Like,
no.
I can argue Intel's not better than Micron.
But so that
speaking of butts, they can go sit their ass on the bench and get a better CEO and work on better projects. That crypto project is not going to save them.
So the announcement helps the industry overall.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, so if we're looking from an ETF standpoint, SMH, I think, is the winner, because it doesn't matter which one of these companies gets awarded. It definitely will be inside of that ETF. We spoke about Nvidia, we spoke about AMD, and I said, Nvidia's prices are high, and right when they come out with the H200, it'll probably be higher, but that leaves a market for people in a different class, which I think AMD will pick up on. Intel, I mean, they're just so far behind, but they are building, right? And so we talk about projects that are happening here domestically. They have three in Arizona. They have one in Arizona, Ohio, New Mexico, and Oregon. They're spending $43 billion, right, for that infrastructure. We already talked about Taiwan Semiconductor, what they're doing in Arizona, but Samsung is another company, right? People, when we think about chips, we don't think about Samsung, but if you talk about from consumer home buying experience, you look inside your home, they are probably making majority of the chips that are inside of your TV or your fridge. Those appliances, Samsung has a huge market in, right? But there are companies here. You mentioned one, Micron. Company to look at, right? If they're awarded some of these subsidies. I spoke about this 3 years ago. I spoke about it last year. I think I mentioned it on the last episode. Global Foundries is a company that I definitely will watch. They are already building here in New York. And then one that gets slept on, and we kind of talked about it. And if you were in high school, you definitely will recognize it, but that's Texas Instruments.
Absolutely.
right? Like this is a company, even if you look inside of SMH's ETF allocation, it's always in its top 10. It fluctuates between, I would say, the 5th position and maybe the 9th or 8th. But it's another strong semi. And we always think about it in terms of, oh, wait, that's the people who made our calculators. But do a little deep dive into some of the things that they're producing, and you'll see like this is another $1 billion industry that's inside of here in America. And so if we're looking at the administration to give subsidies to companies that are here, those are some that are on the forefront that exist here. Everybody knows Nvidia. Everybody sees that AMD. We saw what happened with Intel in their report, but these other Microns and the Global Foundry.
Rashad mentioned Qualcomm. Are any of those? Is Intel better than Global Foundries, Qualcomm? You can argue Marvell. Like, what are we talking about? Like, Intel is like if Bill Cartwright played in today's NBA. So Bill Cartwright, I don't want to smoke.
That bad?
Would you put if it was the last of your kids' money for college? Would you put your money?
No, I'm not doing that. No.
See,
so this news will benefit who? SMH as a whole, and all of the other major chip companies. This is more encouraging news for the chip industry.
Absolutely. I would say definitely SMH does. SOX, I know, is another one of those that are inside of semiconductors, but I think the ones that are domestically, I think those are the ones that you should be putting at the front of your watch list, right? Because it's called Chips for America, right? So they're going to look for American companies. So the ones that we just said, I think those ones benefit. But if you want to just be safe about it, obviously, I'm going the ETF route.
Absolutely. And Qualcomm is a good dark horse as well if you're looking at one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. But this is going to be great for the industry. It's definitely going to provide some safety for the next 4 to 8 years for this space to continue to grow. And I said it maybe 2 episodes ago, the government is a market maker. When they say they're going to deploy this kind of money into a space, do you think it's going to grow or decline? We're going to see rapid growth here over the next 4 or 5 years.
Right. And they always, they have a personal interest in it, right? They want to see it grow. They want to be the leader in tech, and they know what's at the forefront. They know that these are the leading pieces inside of technology, whether it's from a business infrastructure standpoint or a personal standpoint. Like, you have to have it, right? And so we saw what happened during the pandemic, and it was a lesson learned. All right, we can't rely on this from an international standpoint. We need to have more domestic infrastructure. This is a step in that direction. So, yeah.
And Rashad, you said it last week, the next 5 years would be the most important. This explains why. This pretty much bakes in 300% growth over the next 4 or 5 years for this sector, with the government putting all this capital at play for it. Hold for long term, hold for 5 years.